Hi, my name is Rachel Kugler, and for my final topic, I chose to research gun violence, school shootings, and mental health. The reason that I chose this topic is because it has been something that has greatly affected my generation and my academic career. Learning how to hide from school shooters and do drills and constantly hearing about shootings on the news almost every week has been extremely disheartening, and it is a very important and significant topic in the world of education, and I just really wanted to research it because, as awful as it is, I wanted to know more about the side effects of the shootings on the students after they experience what they experience. I find that a lot of people don't consider how the students live and move on after they experience such a horrible thing as a school shooting. So in my opinion, students are kind of forgotten about after the shooting occurs. In one of my articles that I researched, it stated that while school shootings themselves receive widespread media attention, the educational consequences of the shootings on the students and their performance in schools are not well known. So I just wanted to do more research regarding the effects of students after the shootings and how the shootings themselves affect how our government moves forward with gun legislation. So my first article that I researched was about gun legislation, and I found that while mental illness and gun violence are often talked about together, they are not exactly linear topics. There's an assumption that mental illness and gun violence are parallel to each other, but this is not the case. They are two separate issues that have to be addressed separately. By linking mental illness and gun violence together, we are insufficiently addressing gun violence. So while acknowledging the need for improved mental health services, especially in neglected communities, arguing that focusing only on mental health improvements does not significantly reduce firearm homicides. So in this article, I was more researching gun violence in general and not just in schools. And the authors of this article pointed out that only putting emphasis on mental health in gun violence does not address gun violence. There are two separate issues that have to be addressed, and while they do affect one another, to address gun violence, you can only address gun violence because that is a huge topic that needs to be focused on solely, and you can't mix it in with mental health because mental health is also a huge topic that has a wide range of different information, and it is just to get to the root of gun violence. What needs to be examined is the social and economic determinants of gun violence, such as poverty, racism, discrimination, and the lack of access to jobs, healthcare, and quality education. So gun violence is not just linked to mental health. There's a lot more that needs to be addressed when addressing gun violence. And I found in the article that often when there's legislation made about gun violence and gun restrictions and bannings, they only focus on the mental health part of that goes along with gun violence and committing crimes with guns in that type of way. And instead of doing that, the article argued that social and economic factors are just as important as the mental health factors in gun violence. So I also researched the antidepressant usage of students after they experience a school shooting and the increase in that. So in this study that showed that there was increased antidepressant usage, it stated that the usage in the schools that they researched was increased by 21.4% in the following 2 years, and that the students often stayed on the antidepressants for 2 years or longer after the shooting occurred. In my third article, I researched the more academic side after the students experienced the shooting, so after the shooting was over, how the academics looked for the school and the students. This article analyzed how fatal shootings in high schools affect schools and students using data from shooting databases, school report cards, and Common Core data. They found that the grade that had the most decreased enrollment was grade 9, and that math and English standardized tests had the greatest decrease in test scores. They also found that many students suffered from PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder, which greatly affected their performance in academics and affected their ability to retain information with their memory, because PTSD has been found to affect the hippocampus, which is linked to memory, and with the students who had the PTSD from the shootings, that was affected. So their performance emotionally was affected in that way. Academically, it was affected in that way. And it was also found that students had struggled more to build relationships with their peers after the shooting itself took place. And they suffered more from PTSD if the students knew the victims who had passed away in the shooting. In conclusion, I feel as though the effects of students' mental and academic health are not addressed enough after they experience things such as school shootings, and school shootings themselves are not discussed enough in schools. It is a very harsh reality, but it is something that is happening pretty much every single day in the United States, and not addressing it does not make the issue go away. So I feel if students were given the space to explain how they feel about these shootings, and if they knew more information, that they might feel more comfort, even though legally there's still issues with that. Legally, we cannot make the government change certain things if they don't want to do that, but at least if the students knew that they were supported, then even in the event that a shooting happened to them, they would know that they can still have a life after the trauma that they experience.